So we got these two dichotomies when it comes to dopamine. And I will get into what it is more, but it is very important that you understand this, because if you can understand this, you can understand how to leverage dopamine, know what's bad and know what's good, and learn how to fix the bad shit and only have good shit, you know? So on the light side, we got stuff like gym. If you're in school, doing homework, which there are different activities that release differing amounts of dopamine, and doing stuff like homework actually does not release nearly as much dopamine as doing stuff like scrolling on your phone, but it still releases dopamine, so we're going to put it on here for the time being. I don't know if you guys are going to do the exact same thing as what I'm going to state on here, but I'm going to put it anyway because you're going to get the point regardless. So we got gym, doing homework, practicing a martial art. I'm trying to think of some other things that makes you feel accomplished. Oh, okay. Working. We'll put getting paid just for the sake of it. This is kind of neutral territory because it depends on how you perceive it, but getting paid is more or less a good thing, so we can work with it. Just for example, we'll put drawing. Now, like I said, these things can be subjective, but I'm just going to put a couple examples so you understand the point. And then now on the dark side, that's easy to list a lot of stuff on. So we got smoking, basically any drugs, right? Releases a lot of dopamine. That's what leads to addiction. I'm going to put porn because that's also on there. On the dark side, we got doom scrolling. That's a big one that I know a lot of you guys struggle with. A lot of people in this generation struggle with. Excessive entertainment, because that can sabotage your results. This somewhat intertwines with doom scrolling, but I'm going to put it there just in case. But social media addiction, we're going to put that on there. Now, this is an interesting topic because it's like social media can be good, and it definitely is a good platform when it comes to like learning stuff, as well as just consuming certain content that will help you out, especially if you're trying to, you know, build a fan base and build a following for something important. Like, for example, I'm on social media. I'm not going to tell you social media is bad because this is how I'm relaying the information I know to you guys. But like everything in life, there needs to be a balance. If you're just scrolling on social media and you're on it and not doing anything productive, that's taking away from the time that you can be spending on your grind. So just for the sake of it, we're going to put it on there. And since I still have space on the board, I'm just going to put a couple of examples for social media. So like fucking DM fishing, for example, likes, camping. I mean, doom scrolling is a part of it, right? But essentially just being on it without a purpose. Wasting time. This is what our board looks like so far. I'm just gonna highlight this. So this is the light side, right? This is stuff we put on here. Just gonna make sure I can see it. So we got gym, which is good for you. That's good for your physical health, good for your physique, good for your energy levels, great all around, right? We have doing homework. I mean, if you're pursuing a degree is going to help you with your career. Granted, you don't get a shitty, useless degree. But if you're going to be in a career field that's in demand, or you have a plan that involves you getting a job after graduation, it's great. It's not going to release as much dopamine as other activities, like I said, but we'll explain that part later. We have practicing a martial art. Very good for the mind, the body, as well as just developing combat skills and hand-eye coordination skills. And it takes dopamine to continue, you know? Like, a lot of people quit martial arts because it's a lot of work and commitment, and it takes discipline. But the discipline also comes from dopamine. Like, the more that you keep repeating it, the more that you want to keep progressing, which triggers the dopamine spikes in the brain. We have working. I mean, you're going to feel good when you work knowing that there's a reward on the other end, because the thing about something like college, right, is the fact that when you're in college, that's a very delayed process. Like the gratification is going to span you. I mean, not many people get associate's degrees. Some people do, but in this day and age, an associate's degree isn't really going to cut it. So we're looking at like minimum bachelor's degrees, right? We're looking at master's degrees, potentially PhDs. Now, I personally wouldn't go for a PhD. I mean, I feel like if you go for a PhD, you may as well just get a bachelor's, unless you're doing something like healthcare, which, to my knowledge, can require a master's degree for a lot of jobs. But more or less, we're looking at an estimate of a bachelor's or a master's, right? Which is a very delayed process. It can take you from minimum like 3 years all the way up to potentially 8 years. And during that whole time, you're not really getting an immediate reward. With working, you're releasing dopamine into the brain because of the fact that you're guaranteed to receive a reward. Like I don't know if you guys have likely experienced this, where like the day before you get your paycheck, you're just having a high in your brain where it's like, I'm gonna get paid. That's dopamine, right? Dopamine is also released in anticipation to a reward. So working and getting paid are kind of intertwined, but it more or less, it's a good thing, unless you're spending money like a fucking idiot. But we're gonna assume that's not the case, so we'll put it on the light side. And then drawing, I don't know if you guys are artistic. I personally love to draw. My drawings may not look amazing on this little shitty board, but when I draw, I feel really good. When I finish a drawing, I feel really good. So these are more or less examples of things that positively benefit your life, that release dopamine. Now we're gonna talk about the dark side, which is the bad shit. Okay, so we've got smoking, bad for your health, right? It can give you lung cancer. It can kill you. It can destroy your relationships. It can lead to addiction. It's overall just not good for your health, right? We got porn. Fucks up your brain. Like it fucks up, it rewires your dopamine circuitry. It kills drive. It kills discipline. It just makes you a shell of yourself, right? This is a very dopaminergic activity, to where it releases so much dopamine in the brain that it's going to become more difficult to do other things that are release less dopamine, like your homework and shit like that. So these are all bad, okay? Stay away from these to the best of your ability. Now we've got doom scrolling. I mean, there's nothing good about doom scrolling. You're just sitting there. Your brain is essentially running on a rat wheel with dopamine. Nothing productive is really happening out of it, and it's just a waste of time pretty much. And the more that you doom scroll, actually, the harder it is to break out of that. So keep that in mind. We've got social media addiction. Now, this is something very common in our day and age. I'm not going to act like I am not on social media sometimes, doom scrolling, but I at least am aware of the dynamic behind social media and more or less how to escape at any time. But you got DM fishing. This is like waiting on a DM. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have had that crush, right? To where you're sitting there by the phone waiting for a DM, waiting 5-10 minutes, like, please will you respond back to me? This is releasing dopamine every single time. And eventually, when we're done with this, I'm gonna show you some demonstrations as to how the process looks like, so you more or less know what's going on in your brain. So you're sitting there waiting for DMs, right? DM fishing. Likes camping. That's pretty much where you make a post and you sit there for like you check your phone every 30 minutes and you're like, oh, who liked me? Did people recognize my post? It's very counterintuitive, because it's like, it's taking up mental bandwidth when you're just sitting there waiting for the approval of others. Next we have, what is this? I can't read this. I mean, I can't even read my own handwriting. Being on it without a purpose and wasting time. You see, cats are great. Animals are great. I love them too. But it's like, if you're watching cat videos for 5 hours straight, you're not doing anything good for you. So that's an example of that. this is releasing dopamine and taking away your opportunity to level up your stats. So now that you have a baseline understanding as to what the good and the bad things are, we can dive more into what dopamine is and show you a couple of demonstrations as to how it affects the brain and more or less the processes that go towards your day-to-day activity. I'm going to get into the logic behind dopamine releases, and it more or less follows these 4 steps, right? So a couple of you guys may have heard this process. I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, but this is a pretty important point within the book. But when it comes to action and it comes to dopamine releases, you're more or less going to follow this 4-step process of cue, craving, response, reward. I'm just gonna write a couple stuff here. So essentially, right, you got these 4 points, with number 1 being the cue. And this, now other senses can be, engaged, but more or less you're gonna be engaging sight with this, right? You can, hearing is another part of this, but most of the time we're gonna be talking about sight. So this can be, for example, if you love cookies and you see a cookie, like say you're in the kitchen, right? It's a really shitty drawing, but you get the point. And this whole big box is the kitchen, right? And then this is the counter. And your mom brought home a container full of cookies. I know this is a really shitty drawing, but make do with me, okay? These are cookies, and then you're hungry, right? So then you're walking in the kitchen and you're fucking happy. You're like, wow, I saw some delicious cookies. So now you're engaging a sense, which is leading to this first step, which is called the cue. And the cue is essentially a symbol that makes you desire something. So the fact that you saw this is now triggering dopamine in your brain that's making you want to go towards that thing. Like, I don't know if you guys have been in the grocery store and you see like some oatmeal cream pies and you're like, damn, that tastes good, I want to get it. The fact that you saw that thing is now activating the cue, which already released dopamine in your brain that is going to make you want to go towards that thing. That was an example as to how sight engages the first method, right? We also have hearing. Say you're at the club, right, with your boys, and you're just chilling and you hear like this banger song, right? So this is the club, another shitty drawing. This is the disco ball, right? And this is you. And you and your boys are on the dance floor. We'll put you over here. So then, let's see, let's work on this. The music starts playing and you hear Poison. I don't know, I forget the artist's name, but you get the point, right? You hear this banger song, right? And then you're like, damn, this song is really good. But you haven't heard the song in a long time. So you're like, let me Shazam it real quick. And then you pull out your phone, right? And you Shazam it. This is an example of an auditory cue, which now just triggered into action because you got the cue, which was music, which is now likely to lead to add to Spotify playlists. So if we're going to go back to the same example that we had before about the cookie analogy, you seeing it is enough to trigger a cue. You tasting it is especially enough to trigger a cue, because essentially, like we explained, right, dopamine can be released before and after. So before is before you partake in the activity, before action, after action, right? So we got before you actually eat the cookie, you see the cookie. And then after you eat the cookie, what was it? Eat the cookie. So understanding the idea that dopamine is released before and after an action can help you to decide your next course of action between, are you going to partake in that activity or are you not going to? So if you can understand the idea that dopamine is released before you engage in activity and after you engage in activity, this is going to save you, goodness, a lot of bad decisions and pivot you towards good decisions. This is how the chain smoker that sees a cigarette and the diabetic that sees a cookie can end up just fucking their life, because they engage a cue and they're not realizing that they're releasing dopamine before they even partake in that activity, which is already going to sabotage them before they even did anything, which is crazy, right? I'm going to give you guys a positive example, right? So I'm a martial artist and I like to hit shit, as you can probably tell. And so there was a point in time where I had a punching bag upstairs, in my loft. Now I have it downstairs, right? And I'm actually going to use this because this is a very good example as to how the initial cue can lead to a behavior or can lead to you not doing the behavior. In my upstairs loft, this is my room with my door. And then if you walk out my door, there is this punching bag. We're going to put a little bit more effort into this drawing. There's this punching bag. And initially when I first set it up, it wasn't that big of a deal for it being there, right? But I started to go up and hit this thing, right? So this is me, and I'm kicking it. I'm beating it up, right? So this is sight to engagement. So it wasn't that big of a deal until I started to do this every day because I was now releasing dopamine to the point where I actually associated this behavior with feeling good. And then whenever I saw the punching bag, I would hit it. I was no longer even in control of the fact that what I was doing, right? The more you do an activity, the more your brain actually starts to associate the activity with dopamine, which is going to release more of the dopamine, which is going to lead to you engaging in that behavior more. So I was unconsciously releasing dopamine every time I hit this because I saw it, the cue, it created a craving of oh, I want to hit it. My response was I hit it, and then the reward was I felt good, which would just create a feedback loop, right? Fast forward a couple weeks, I was told that I had to move the bag downstairs because my parents were tired of me hitting it all the time. So then this disappeared, right? This is the top disappeared. I no longer had a cue. So I went weeks without seeing this thing. And it was now in a pain in the ass spot to get to. So it was no longer cueable. So I no longer had as strong as a craving, which led to not as strong as a response, which led to no reward. And if I wasn't getting a reward, then my brain's well, why do it then? Which reduced me actually participating in that behavior. So if you want to engage in a behavior, you want to use these 4 steps of where you make it easy to trigger a cue. And then once you make that easy, these next steps will become easier because the craving will naturally come. you'll want to respond to that, which will make you take an action. And then once you get a reward, your brain's like, that felt good, which releases dopamine, which we know dopamine leads to repetition. And you also feel pleasure from it, which is not the main, it's not the main job of dopamine. It's kind of a response, like a byproduct of it. But you also have endorphins, which probably for another video, but I'll just briefly explain, is, let's see, pain relief, feel good. So endorphins and dopamine kind of go together because endorphins can be a result of dopamine, which makes the dopamine hit stronger. Let's say we got your brain here, right? And you see a new activity. So let's say you go to the gym. We'll just put like a dopamine counter. You're at the gym, right? And you're lifting, and then you get into the flow of it, and it feels good, and then it releases dopamine, which helps you continue. Your dopamine counter is going to start at 0, and then the more you keep going, it's going to go up. +1, right? +1, +1, +1. The more you keep showing up, the more consistent, the better you feel, the more results you get. You get a +1 to this counter. So eventually, you're at dopamine counter 20. And this doesn't just apply to the gym. This is just the example we're using, right? Now you got a 20 dopamine counter. So what this is going to do is now when you see a dumbbell, bro, you're going to go ballistic. Because you're like, your brain has now associated that to where it feels good, and you're going to repeat that action. So now you're going to be a lifting machine. So understanding this dynamic is really going to help you out, because if you can make things easier for you by putting things in your sight that needs to be done, you're going to trigger releases in your brain that's going to make you want to keep doing that thing. And for the things that you don't want to do anymore, you need to erase the cue, which will naturally erase the craving, the response, and the reward, which will stop fucking up your brain when it comes to bad stuff like smoking, that we explained before, smoking, porn, what else was on there? Doom scrolling. That will not help you out in your self-development journey. Dopamine detoxing, which is essentially a process where you go without the activity that releases dopamine, to where your dopamine receptors in your brain can get more time to recharge and function properly. Because with all the stimuli that we have in this day and age, it's very easy for your brain to get fried and to be chasing unnecessary highs, which makes the less dopaminergic things like doing your homework, writing, reading a book, much more difficult in comparison. So in recap, if you want to erase a bad behavior, get rid of all these steps. Cue, craving, response. Now you may ask, how do I get rid of these things? What if, like with the cookie example, what if the cookies are in my kitchen and I can't move them? Well, take them out the kitchen. Take them out of anywhere that you know they're going to be. Like say you have a phone scrolling addiction, right? And you're just doom scrolling, and your phone is the devil for you right now. You want to, first of all, turn it off so you're less tempted to use it. Create friction, right? Then you want to lock it up. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, a process you can use is you can give it to a friend or a family member and be like, hide this or hold on to it until, I need to use it. Or you can just use a different method, like put it in a different room, put it in a drawer. Essentially, put it away from you to where you make it a pain in the ass for you to get that thing, which will create friction to stop you from doing that thing. With the cookies, if it's in the kitchen, throw that shit out, for example, or you can give it to a friend to hold on to you. I mean, at that point, you may as well not have it, but the point still stands. If you don't want to do something, you need to erase the cue, because the cue is going to lead to all of these behaviors, which is going to lead to you doing it, which is eventually going to lead to self-hatred, which is bad, and ultimately a lack of confidence, because you have very little self-control, because your dopamine is fried. And this doesn't inherently make you a bad person, because it's very easy to get hooked onto dopamine, activities that are very dopaminergic. But instead of trying to discipline yourself into not doing that thing, which is like, oh, I'm just not gonna, if you tell yourself, I'm just not gonna use my phone, I'm not gonna do it, it's not working, bro. You need to get rid of it entirely. That way your brain will be less fried. I know I have a bunch of shit going on here, it's pretty chaotic, but your brain will be less fried. This is your brain right here. Your brain will be less fried, and it's not constantly craving shit. That is not good for you. So in a nutshell, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's released in the brain that is responsible for pleasure, reward, and repetition. And if you can understand this dynamic, you can blow up your results, bro, because not understanding dopamine is really a disservice to you.